First of all, we are telling a story, okay? When we are illustrating something, we are telling a story about something. And that something is, well, most of the times I would like to think something we care about. And that alone, when we care about it, it's really important. I mean, the fact that we're taking some time of our life, which is finite, just to tell something about something, it's really important. So we have to, well, in all of this is just my work, my process, my thought process. So think of this as a huge bunch of lies, and please tell me I do not believe you in this part, and then we will talk. I think that's those are the best stories that I've ever read or that I like the most. And so rule number one, there is no unique, correct, or optimal way of doing this. And that is freaking fucking amazing. I mean, I love it. I love the fact that there is no single way of narrating something, and therefore there is no wrong here. I mean, there is only room for improvement. The worst thing that can happen is somebody telling us, I did not understand a single thing that you just said, right? So either we change your narrative, or the person just reads it twice, or maybe takes another approach. And that really depends on the main focus that we want to pursue with this. I mean, when we're doing art, we are not pursuing convincing anybody to do anything, and that's art. But we're not doing art here. We want to illustrate something to get something. So that's like the main difference on why we are not talking about our art specifically, but we can relate on art, on achieving some communicational strategies. So, for example, I, for myself, take poetry as a very huge inspiration on narrating something. And there's this thing that I took. I really hope I can translate this very correctly in the way that I read this in Spanish, because it's from Juan José Arreola, which is a writer, a Mexican writer. And it was said, well, he said those words on meeting at UNESCO in '98. They were talking about poetry specifically. And the question was, what is poetry for you, like specifically? And he said that it's all that matters and is worthy in this world. That which legitimizes our condition as men and women, as humanity, is the poetic, whether in words, in any artistic expression, or in human attitudes. In my case, I would like to add in frugal projects, okay? Poetry is the only real man's possibility of being, their possibility to create. We're talking about language. Poetry is a linguistic phenomenon, a specific arrangement of words. When there is an authentic urgency to communicate an intimate experience of or our perception of the external world, the expressive will creates the arrangement of words, which is strict. Okay, and this is the part that I think it's the most important part. Like the projects that we are trying to narrate, specifically these projects, like the frugal projects, which are mainly like the main core really is about bringing closer the gap between science and people. And this is through design, this is through science itself, this is through labs, this is through a lot of things that we're constantly doing in our daily scientific lives, for example. but we are not necessarily having this authentic urgency to communicate it, or we haven't really identified the intimate experience, or we haven't really stated our perception of the external world, which is our statement of the problem. And the fact that we want to express it, which is the expressive will, that's what creates the arrangement of words. So the arrangement of words, which is strict, is what will identify our narrative from other narrative. This strict arrangement of words is what we are trying to create. Like, this is the goal. The goal in poetry is the arrangement of words that will transmit this person's perception of the external world, which is the poem. Like, which word comes first, which words come last, how many words, how long should the poem will be. And in our case will be our selection of the pictures, if I will draw it, if I can use pre-existing material, if I will, I don't know, recycle, I will do a collage, I will crop something out of a magazine and then paste it. Those strict arrangement of images is what we are trying to reach for, okay? So there's this another person that said, create a beautiful form because an even more beautiful idea will come to lodge in it. This is something a poet said, okay? And this is not necessarily a strategic kind of thinking for something that makes science, because we are not used to create things without an objective, or we're not used to create something without an hypothesis, or we are not used to creating something that has no meaning at all. That doesn't happen in art. Okay, in art, it's like you can create a lot of things that will have no meaning for this moment, particularly, but might have something to say someday. Like, you can recycle the things you just thought about something. And this practice in arts is something that I personally think that will improve a lot of the communicational skills in science, like just really registering beautiful forms that we just find. I mean, it can be images, it can be related to science, it might have nothing to do with science. I mean, just beautiful forms that you find, and a beautiful idea might come and lodge in it. So obviously you will not select everything that comes in your way. I mean, it's just that just because something, I mean, I was a really extreme accumulative person, like these programs that just keeps on accumulating a lot of stuff. So, and my computer was dying of it, like seriously dying of it. So I just decided to put some strict rules in my head, which is like, okay, will I be able to find this later? No. Okay, save it. For example, that was like the first rule. Second rule, do I find this unique? I mean, and this kind of set of rules, they started giving me this kind of sensibility on which of the things I was perceiving as important, as beautiful, or as relevant. So that's what I am trying to express when I say sensibility. And I will try to express myself with these images, which is from, well, these two paintings are from the same painter, which is William Turner. And he did this painting on 1834, and he did this painting 10 years later. I personally find this image way more expressive than this image, and it has few elements. I mean, if you see this image, you have lots of information. I mean, you have the ships, you have this other ships, you have this beautiful lake. I mean, I'm not saying this is a bad painting. This is a beautiful painting. I mean, it's beautifully done, right? And like the technical skills that he used to do this painting were like amazing, and he has this really good perception and light and color and symmetry and all of these artsy things. But that does not give me the information that I get out of looking at this. I mean, I myself, for example, can feel the speed of this train. I mean, I can feel the steam around it and the fog. And it's just like the light, you can perceive different, like the light in this picture here than here. And independently on the technical part of this, on the appreciation of these paintings, what I want to remark on this is the selection, the sensible selection that the painter did. The strict, what we're talking about poetry, about the strict order of words. This is a strict order of color and shapes. It's the same thing. He chose something about something else. And in this case, he chose to put light and color rather than objects. And the only object that he detailed was this train. Maybe this arcs, maybe this ship that Ken tells us. I mean, he only had to paint this ship to let us know that here's water. And here he had to do a lot, like a fleet, a total fleet, and all these reflections. And of course, he wanted to transmit like something quiet and still. But here, the selection was different. So we get like a whole different picture out of it. And we can see this priorities, like the selection of priorities on lots of works. For example, here, this is by Elliot Hopkins, which I myself find beautiful. I mean, I look at this leaf, it's just a leaf. You cannot know if it's a leaf on the ground. If you cannot know if it's a leaf, it's just a leaf. But I find this like comparison that it's just like shaping itself, like the back is like this, and then this, I don't know, it just transmits me something different than any other leaf. So my point with this picture is that he could have chosen any other dead leaf, but he chose that one. And the fact that he chose that one is for a reason. And this works with art. I mean, he has nothing else to say. He doesn't need to say anything else. And the interpretation of this work, it's really up to us. That doesn't happen with science. But we can, I'm putting these examples so we can know, or we can visualize these selection processes. For example, here with, I suck at pronouncing these names, with our friend Walter, like the selection of, he chose to, I myself find really helpful to just find something out of the project. Like it doesn't have to be the whole project, but just an argument that really, really connects with me, like my personality. Like, because that's when it gets easier to make the strict arrangement of words. Like that wheel really pumps up, that will really pump up the expressive will. mean, when you have no expressive will, nothing will come out, or it will come out as a meh. Like, it doesn't really matter to me if this comes first and then this comes later, and it will be sloppy, and I don't really care about what people understand, and you can tell. I mean, you can tell when you are receiving the presentation. I mean, it's something you cannot explain right away, but you feel it. And that's the amazing part of illustration and arts when art combined with science. So this is important because of this. Because when you find that intimate experience in a project, it might not impact everyone, but if it impacts anyone, will definitely be the correct one. So this is super important because, for example, if you are explaining your project or narrating Tyler. This is super important. Like the part where you definitely connect with what's important to you. I mean, you don't have to be totally in love with all of the projects that you work with, but if you can find this little piece that really moves with you, then you can find that intimate experience. So if you don't find that intimate experience, what you communicate might not, let's assume, for example, that you do not care that much about the narrative, and then you just tell your project like, whatever. I mean, you just don't care that much about the narrative, and somebody thinks that understands the problem and says, okay, here's my $1 million, dude. Do whatever you want with them. Well, no, wait, because I understood your problem this way. So here's my $1 million, but it will be this way because this is what I understood about your project. So there's a problem there. I mean, when you engage with the wrong collaborators, then you're compromising something that might be really important to you. So if you have this intimate experience really well identified, it will be easier for you to express it. And again, it might not impact everyone, but if it impacts anyone, will definitely be the correct one. And that correct one might not give you $1 million, but it might help you with, I don't know, 100 hours of work, maybe. And that's really valuable. Good. Okay. So we're in part 2. What is important for me? What is the thing, feeling, or reason that makes me urgent to communicate about my project? We're talking specifically about projects here now. So might be anything. I mean, an argument, a question, another story, a fact, or even just a hunch. I mean, and I personally engage more with projects that are a hunch. For example, myself, like if somebody comes with me and tells me something full of data, I mean, but they don't truly believe in that data. I mean, it's just like their conclusion is just, well, the data is telling me this. It's like, yeah, but you don't have that hunch. I mean, I, Fer Arias, don't personally believe in only data. I mean, I really have to see in other people that they're having this special hunch for it. And I want to engage with projects that have that. And I want like contributors that also believe in that. So when I'm telling a narrative, I really try to communicate the reason for that project. I mean, and again, might be even a question that itself. And then the other things that are full of data, that are full of, I don't know, logical structures or whatever, are just like other arguments that support the fact that I'm narrating. So either way, as you already have a project, you have reasons to believe in it. And so like most of us aren't exactly kind on what we believe in. So we're really trying to find a lot of other arguments, scientific arguments, which is totally fine. But again, the sensible part of this kind of technique that I'm trying to explain goes beyond that, goes to really connecting with people other than connecting with the scientific persona that they represent. So because scientific personas collaborate in working schedules, and that's totally fine. But when we're trying to go beyond that, as like frugality demands, for example, I think that the sensible part really goes there. So if you contradict yourself in the future, be kind to you in the future. So existing ideas, narratives, things, etc., are up to the challenge of being destroyed. So what you believe now, maybe like in 2 months or in a year, might not work. And you have proofs for that. I mean, you already have all of your, let's say, your recent, or your, like all the hard facts that support your project, which you have, that you must have, but also like the sensible part of it, like, why do I believe that this is important now? That might not be as important for you in the future, or it will. The point here is that this really, for me, it's like a relief. Like, as Manu said, that there is no problem on letting projects go. But if you are really narrating them from your heart, or were like from this urgency to narrate something, then somebody else will take it and they will continue it because they were really engaged with it and not with just data. And this particular singularity is what will make your illustration different from any other. I mean, your beliefs, your reason, your narratives, even the wine that you drank when you were 6 years old will change the illustration. Like, for example, the way that I explained our project was different from the way that Paola told the project, that, and was different at first than how Hashika was narrating the project, or Javier did. But we expressed ourselves, well, among us, like the main reason why we were so focused on this project, and was inequality. It wasn't technology itself, it was inequality. So that's that was like our main reason, our urgency. And again, it might not impact everyone, blah blah, you know. So we're creating a meta story. Yes, we're talking about, we're telling a story about a story. That's mainly it. Your story is a project, and we're telling a story about that story. Okay. So as we're not making art, we're making illustration, we're making design. We need to know, what do we need from others? And we have to be real honest here. So, for example, from myself, from this workshop, from you, I need for you to have as many tools as you can. Why? Because I love you. I mean, I really believe in all your projects, and I truly believe that the main reason that you're here is because you really want to reduce the gap between science and people, and that for me is really important. So I'm committed to it. And I cannot do all of your projects for myself. I mean, I really can't. I love all of them. I have no knowledge about specific technology, so I trust you to do that. And who is the frugal community? A bunch of people that want to solve difficult problems, taking frugality as a must. Clear. How is a frugal community? They're pretty cool, relaxed enough, as for me to use the word fuck a lot, and they're creating. They have to be creative, okay? So these are my needs. This. And my need for another group, which would be my faculty professors, as like where I'm taking classes currently, I need the same. I, Fer, need for my faculty to have as many tools as they can. Why? There's another reason, but I need them to do that. I need them to have as many tools as they can, because there's my education there, okay? So who is this people? A bunch of people who want to solve difficult problems using design that was proposed in the 70s. And the audience is different. I mean, they're very uptight. They don't see value of art in science. They value strict methods over creativeness. And though I need the same things, the audience is different. And we can see that also in illustration and in anime, yeah. So, for example, a very important scene, or a very important part that we have to take into account is the difference between divulgation and diffusion. In divulgation, it's for the vulgo, comes from the people, and it's like we want to talk to the whole audience. And diffusion is that we want to talk in pairs. And you need to really position yourself into pairs if you want to make divulgation. You have to, it's more complicated. I find it more complicated. And diffusion, it's easier because you are trying to communicate with somebody that knows the codes that you're using. For example, I wouldn't in a million years use anime to explain something to my teachers or my parents even. Well, maybe my parents, but well. And for example, in this scene, this girl is facing a titan which can eat her. And this titan is really like he's nailed to the ground. And this is a very tense scene of the series. I mean, this animation, it's actually for grown-ups. And it has this version for kids, and the version for kids, it's this way. I mean, they're also like the main, I mean, the narrative is the same, but the audience is different. And they are also tied up, but they're not tied up with, tied down, sorry, with nails, for example. And I find this example really illustrative. And then, still not drawing anything. This is my process. This is how I do it. Now, first of all, well, now that you know all of these things, or that you at least have it in mind, you need to take like maybe some time to really put down like some journaling time with your matcha latte after yoga, really, why do I care about this? I mean, at least it gives you some clues on where you are going. And the questions, I mean, if you, I like the whole structure part is on the I mean, I won't delete this. You can reread this Notion page whenever you want. For the steps, if you want to take this as a step, it's not a methodology, it's just a suggestion. And I'm looking at Rico's comment. Same as disclosure and similar to propagation. Yes, indeed. In Spanish is divulgación. Yeah, I really did. I just assumed that was the translation. Not sure, but yes, it's propagation. I mean, it's easier to propagate, but that's why it's more difficult to design. And yes, exactly. And well, my system, this is my system, is first tell the story orally to a friend and record it. For example, in our case, it's like, well, I wasn't always a feminist, and when I realized that all of this pregnancy involved information was available on hidden networks, I got kind of sad, kind of happy, you know. And then I did some research and I found out that, like, if you were talking to a friend that you really like, a friend that you like, well, first there's this friend that really knows you real well and will empathize with you and will ask like the questions. That's diffusion. I mean, that has the same codes that you have, and that's the easiest part. And then you listen to all possible questions and then incorporate the answers in a new story. And that new story, you will then re-narrate it to another person that might not fully understands you, as, for example, your sister. That's when I try it with my dad. Because first, I try with my sister that really knows me well, that knows my codes, and I don't have to explain the word, for example, patriarchy. Or, oh, to my dad, I have to make this effort because it's a different audience. And that way I can recalibrate the story that I'm telling. And then just write a story in a script. And for that is, again, a strict order of words. And this is when you start looking at the different ways that you can tell this story. And in this case is your project, but it can be also the problem. And this part is important because it's not always that you have to illustrate only the final process. I mean, we're very used to do this on the final parts of a project that, for example, okay, I finished, now I have to present it to somebody. And we keep this part of trying to communicate it at the very last. So we're not very sure. I mean, all these iterative processes of going back or really reassuring that, did I really understand? Or did I really mean that? Do I really mean that? Okay, so you write the story in a script and then you make a cartoon. I do it. This is my process. And so I make a cartoon, like really poorly drawn cartoon, just describing the whole process, the project process. And this cartoon can be even interpreted as a diagram even. But the fact that you're assigning characters to a project makes it a story. So when you put characters, you are personifying problems. And this is more, this is easier to really engage with people. Then you have to make a decision on the format. So is this for a presentation? Is this just to communicate to my peers what I'm actually understanding, that like, are we really doing this? This is what I'm understanding of the project so far. Or, okay, we're having this meeting and I want to know if I can count with all of you. This is what we are achieving. This is what we are. A narrative, it's like, how do you say, like a corte, like just like this pause when you want to know if everybody's like on board, on the same page. Yes, on the same page. And then when you make a decision on the format, is this for presentation, animation, book, comic, infographics, just personal record? Then I like to make analogies. And it's just trying to think other ways to say something, like why your project is important, your findings, and the implications of neglecting your project or the problem itself. And some amazing resources that I use are mainly myths, symbols, movies, comics, music, and like personal stories, like from my life. It's like, well, there was this time that because that personally, I think that really engages with people. And I have tons of books. This is important because I use them, and then I will share with you this. For example, I did this just for a quick homework that I had, and I use Rick and Morty because I like Rick and Morty to talk about technological innovation. And it's just that, it's like, I want to explain this. I have to explain this for Morty. I mean, because I had to make sure that my peers really understand it. Yeah. So it's like, how would I explain this to Morty? That was like the question. I mean, technical innovation, it's important to me, but the book that I was trying to explain, because it was an assignment, wasn't really, I really did not believe in that, but I believed more in Rick and Morty, so I stuck to that. Damn it. Wait.
Oh, I see now.
Now we see Pokemon.
Okay, so I use Pokemon as an analogy. I mean, it's just the different kinds of like evolutions of innovation, and I was like, dude, just like Pokemon. And that was it. I mean, that's the power of analogies. I mean, and I did this just for a homework. I mean, this is in Spanish, but the important part here is that when you have like lots of other things, like, don't neglect those things. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can communicate your ideas that might not have to do always with science. I mean, Pokemon rocks. And then, so for example, here, like the whole business thing and how to make innovation environments work. It's like there were like 5 things, and I was like, oh, dude, just like a Megazord. And then I use that. It's like, dude, I know my stuff, and if anybody, like, if you do not know Megazords, then it doesn't matter, because it's like just have some parts of stuff. And the cool part of this is that somebody already thought of that. I mean, somebody already thought on having parts like separated and then gathering them together. Somebody already thought of that, which is the creator of Power Rangers. And then you can use that idea. I mean, analogies do not have to be always like so tied up. And you can use the analogy of that, just like parts gathering together. And then this was especially funny because I had like clusters, sectorial systems, management, tech systems, government, and then I had 4 other things, and I was like, dude, I'm out of parts of a Megazord, but I have the analogy. So like what other analogy can I use, like in cartoons, because I'm in the cartoon world that gathers stuff to make a better stuff. And then like I use this, like contextual issues. And then Powerpuff Girls, obviously. And then it's like strategy, learning, knowledge, trust, and then you can make a tech revolution. Because here, for example, if you recall Powerpuff Girls, like the main ingredient, the thing that made them like superpower or whatever, is like trust. I mean, that's the main part. And this might not be like the true meaning of this might not impact everyone, but you know, like you have the images of somebody adding something, and that's it. That's all you need to illustrate something. If you know your colors well, then it will work. I mean, visually it will work, but you can understand, for example, I'm not sure if Rico knows about the Powerpuff Girls and the main ingredient of like the Professor X secret potion, but it doesn't matter because Rico can understand that are just ingredients. And that's it. I mean, the story gets narrated and that's it. But if I want to approach some audience and I want, for example, that the person who reads this, it's like on my age, because I want to work with somebody of my age, then I'm pretty sure that if Tyler understands it, then he might work with me. And that's the part that it doesn't matter that everyone gets it, but if the correct person gets it, then it's okay. I mean, then you have a meta story. So I will stop this, and it was, I had to actually draw this, but this was like, again, innovation stuff, but it was meant to be described as a journey, as a parrot thing, you know? And again, there's like this trip, and you have some tips from the oldest guy on the boat, and then you have a captain that gives you some special recommendations, and then you have like dangers, and they can be, I mean, you can represent this just by cute triangles, and that's it. And then it's just the using analogies really can help you on trying to order on that strict order that we spoke about previously. So you're using these resources, then it's really easy to assign characters. Every story has characters, and abstractions without characters. I mean, most of the presentations that I saw in the Frugal presentations had no characters, though they were all involving people. And that was really surprising for me. I mean, it was like, it was not really really involving someone specifically. It was just an abstraction of problems that were explained by data, for example. And that for me, it's amazing. I mean, I think that only ultra pro artists, in my humble opinion, can do that. But when you are trying to illustrate something or narrate something, then it doesn't really work. And we have to state, especially in this kind of projects, who is important, who gets benefit, who makes decisions, and who pulls the triggers. This is the main persons that I think that should be personified in a story all the time. And then just start curating it, make a rough version of it, discard anything that does not add strong value to everything that we just talked about, like what is important for me, what's really important for me, like the really strong data for these characters that really can stick to the analogy that you think that will transmit the message that you want to provide. So we have like 10 minutes, but now is the part that you can draw now. So I want to see your drawings because I really love seeing people's drawings. So I will give you 3 minutes so you can gather like a pencil, an eraser, sharpener, just like, I mean, I already put the material here. I'm not sure if you saw it, but this is just if you want to go onto the specific part of, like, I want to try that style. Personally, I think that that is the very last step, because as I told you, I mean, and I think that if I repeat that analogy again, it will make a lot of more sense, that if you have a really beautiful poem, it doesn't really matter if you, I mean, of course, that you will appreciate it more if you will read it in Times New Roman rather than in Comic Sans. I mean, I'm not saying that, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't change the fact that the poem is beautiful, that the strict arrangement of words works. Because especially when you hear it, I mean, it's meant to be heard. So, because it's meant to be felt, and that's what we are trying to achieve with this project. We do not want only people to be amazed by, oh, those graphics, oh, those data, that data, oh, that problem. It's just like, dude, we have to do something, like, take my money. So sorry, take my money. But to get there, that's why I try to stress the importance of really having this sensible part previous to actually narrating something. So go get your stuff. I will get a little bit of water, and we'll see you in like 5 minutes. Okay? Mosi, do you want to tell us something about the things that are pasted on your wall? Like, while everybody gets here?
I will tell you guys, and Deborah, I'm sorry, about the context of what's written in my wall. On March 8th and March 9th, here in Mexico, well, especially on March 8th, I believe, or I don't know which one of those days, of those 2 days, it is like celebrated. I don't know if it is internationally or just nationally celebrated, like Women's Day here in Mexico, at least. But things here in Mexico have been rough for women. About like 20 women die on a daily basis for hate crimes. So for the last 2 years here in Mexico, that day is being like really significated by women, and it has stopped being like a celebration. It has turned more into like the Day of the Dead, like the Day of the Dead Women. And I mean, it has become a day with like a really strong meaning for all women, and I mean for everybody. And well, I personally couldn't stop crying for 2 days straight, because it's just like starting to hear all of other girls' stories of abuse and rape, and I don't know, it's just very like, I don't know, it's a lot and it's too much. And so there are riots that are being that were done those days in many states here in Mexico, and in my state, which is Querétaro, I could not go to the march, the riot, because of the pandemic, and so I decided to just take part of the protest, but via virtually. And right now you cannot read what these papers, I don't know how do you say it, say, but because the video isn't mirrored. But here, the university where I go to here in Mexico is called the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México. In 2017, a woman named Lesbi Berlin Osorio was murdered by her boyfriend inside the faculty. And the school neglected the video, the security camera recordings were neglected for the mom of the victim, so she could not get proof in the favor of her daughter for that case. And I wrote that. It basically says, Lesbi Berlin Osorio was murdered on May 3 of 2017 by Jorge Luis González Hernández in the campus of the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México, just so we could remember what happened there, and so it won't be forgotten. And then there is this song here in Mexico that got really famous, which is called Canción sin Miedo. It translates to a song without fear. And this is just a part of the lyrics that are in that song. And it says, if they touch a woman, we all respond. So that's the context of this. I don't know, how do you say cartel? These ads, I don't know, how do you say it in English?
Publicity, yeah. Thank you.
It's not publicity.
No, it's not, but I think it's really important because I wanted to stress that out, because as we're this international community, we have to know what's going on, at least on the things that really matter to us as a community. I think that's really important, just to well, not only on the practical part of it, which is if I know that Rico cares about space, I can share with Rico a lot of things about space. That's the practical part of it. But also when we know that these things matters to us, in that depth, I think it's easier for us to really be empathic as a community. And we are a community, so I wanted you to know that I also care about that a lot. And well, most of the participations that I have are that kind of radical. For example, I am a writer too, and that's sort of my limits, and that translates also in the kind of narrative that I do. I do not care about a drawing that will be bad or poorly drawn, as long as the message gets across. Or I do not care that showing Pokemons in a university. I do not care. I'm that badass. It's not that I'm a badass, but I have my limits aren't exactly those. And I think it's important to state the things that we care to stick together as a community. So please, if you we do not have this kind of sessions all the time, but we have Discord, and in Discord we can, even not in the kind of projects that we have on a daily basis, but well, it's always important to just know our interests. And okay, end of it. I mean, now it's mirrored, right? Okay, so what, why, how, and who? And then just add this. What do I care? Why do I care? How do I care? And who do I care about? Just have your project in mind. Have nothing specific, like just think the project. I mean, just the project. Nothing specific, not like deluxe or just project in general. I mean, just the first thing that comes in your mind. And I want you to just write just one word, like one, only one word. Like, what do I care about my project? Why do I care about my project? How do I care? The how do I care might be like the, well, yeah, the how, just like the methodology part, the what would I do, how, and that mainly involves a verb, like I don't know, training, if your project is getting fit, for example. How do I don't know, reading or whatever. Just like the word that you feel that is like the strongest, just that word, just choose one. And who do I care about? And I just want to know, like, just write it. I will tell you. Okay, just write. Share with you what I wrote, so it might bring you some ideas. I was thinking about my project, and probably because we have my sister here, who also like participated on the same project. So we might have different words, but we have the same narrative. So that will be interesting to see. So, for example, in what do I care, I put sensibility. I care about sensibility. I mean, like in general, I really believe that sensibility will change this world forever. And I truly believe that a really big part of like the misogyny is part of that. So why do I care? Because of justice. I mean, I care about this project because I think it's really unfair that we do not have proper devices and technology to know about our bodies. And I don't find like fair that we know about our reproductive system like from a really few years ago, and that most of our body parts are named after dudes. I mean, I find that like even offensive myself, but okay. So how do I care? Creating. I mean, that's how I care about this project. And who do I care about? Girls. I mean, specifically little girls. I mean, I also believe that the alliance with childhood is like the biggest alliance that humanity can make, because that's like the only way on really making a huge difference in this world. And I also believe that kids are treated as second-class citizens, and they don't have like either technology or proper tools for them to fully develop whatever they have to say. So those are the words that I used. Momosi, which are the words that you chose?
Well, in what do I care about, I wrote 3 words. Lack of information.
That's cheating.
Well, information.
Okay.
I care about information. Why do I care about? I wrote depth because I feel like we are in depth with, with people with an uterus. It kind of resembles to what Fer wrote, in the sense that I feel like justice must be made, in the sense that we own ourselves so much information, and I don't know, well, that's why I wrote depth. And how do I care about it? I wrote addressing. I feel like just by addressing these lacks or these holes of information is a great way to start. And who do I care about? I wrote people with an uterus.
Cool. Thank you.
You want to go first? No, okay. Okay, fine. I'm jumping a bit in between projects, so I just picked the first one that seems easiest. So
Cool.
I'm currently working with Sophia on this idea of bringing a braille to kids who have some difficulties seeing, so they need something to easily write and read braille letters. And for what do I care, I wrote education. Because if you can't read and write, that's clearly missing. Why do I care? I wrote freedom. How do I care? Device building.
Okay.
Because hopefully we can come up with a device that's like simple and cheap to produce. And who do I care about? I wrote down his kids that Sophia knows, and where we, like, I don't know them, I have no idea what the school is, but he says that there is like 80 kids that need this.
Cool.
And this is who I'm currently thinking about.
Cool. And I think that's, well, okay, let's hear Rico and then I'll do a quick recap.
Okay, not sure I'm getting this right, but who do I care about? Oh no, what do I care about? I care about giving people access to the wonders of the universe. And why do I care? Because for me, I've always thought of anything space related as an equalizer. Like it doesn't matter if you're male, female, black, brown, yellow, white. It's the one place where none of that matters. So if you can get out there, then you're in a judgment-free space, to use the pun. How I want to, well, obviously we can't go to space right away, but we need a catalyst to get interested in space. So I want everyone who wants a telescope to be able to afford a telescope. I was super surprised that 2 people on my team, one in Iraq and one in Ethiopia, despite the fact that they're on our team, they've never seen or touched a telescope in their life. And I just, that bothers me. So who do I care about are those who are
Too, so.
Really?
Yeah, me neither. I haven't seen a
Really?
telescope personally.
Okay,
So who do I care about are people who are educationally or astronomically marginalized or disenfranchised. Like, I don't know, guys. I mean, if I may extend this a little bit, but every day we walk outside at night, we see the moon, but I think people have become complacent about the moon, that it's just like, it's like a light in the sky. You're like, yeah, okay, it's on today. It's not on today. But when you see it through a telescope, you talked earlier about characterization. It becomes a person, or it's so beautiful that I can't even describe to you until you've seen it I mean, obviously there are photographs of it on the internet, but there's nothing like seeing it with your own eyes through a piece of glass.
Cool.
So.
Okay, so we'll use Rico as an example. Okay, because Rico used like 500% more words than I told him. But I tried to like get one of the words, and then you will tell me if that word really represents what you said, because this is an exercise for abstraction. Okay, so I put, what do I care? I put wonder. Like, you care about the wonder. I mean, and like the first word that I put also was sensibility. And I think it's very related. I mean, I totally feel you. Like, I too feel that those things that leave you breathless are the ones that actually change paradigms. So, like, really putting wonder into people, it's like truly important. I mean, like, really important. So I put wonder there. And then why I put equality, because you just talked about how like that, on that perspective, like really that far away, we're all the same. I mean, the moon doesn't care. That's the best of the moon. I mean, for the moon, we're all that lame, and that is the best. And third, on the how, I put catalyzing. I mean, you use that specific verb, and I think it's a very appropriate verb, because you are actually using really high tech, or tech that it's meant to be used by people with money. That's it. I mean, and this is actually very important, because history tells us that wonder is only meant to be viewed by the privileged. And we are trying to break that narrative, and that is amazing. And who you put, those people that I put the underdogs. I mean, those who haven't even touched a telescope, or can't in their lives be able to like even reach the opportunity of watching something that we should all watch. I mean, because it's a wonder. I mean, it's just something beautiful that's out there. And the fact that we are not, I mean, this is something else, and this is just to make this point. There is this project that it's called forensic architecture that you can look for. It's beautiful. I mean, I really love those guys, and those are like my main goal, just like to do what I do. But forensic architecture has this narrative that tells you that resolution is really equivalent to privilege. I mean, if you are privileged enough, then you can have lots of resolution in everything. I mean, not only speaking about image, also about information. I mean, how specific how specific information is about your body corresponds to your privileges. So I think that.
So what was the word? What was the word for the last category that you chose for me?
Underdog. I mean.
Underdog. Okay.
Underdog. Underdog is like the outcast, like the marginal, and
the forgotten. How about that?
The peripheral. And like this is why, like, watching movies, reading manga, having lots of influences can start giving you these other words, like, because then you can feel the images coming right to you. I mean, if you have the word like underdog, if I have the word underdog on my mind, I can think, for example, in some movies. And I can think then in the analogy of that movie particularly. And it's more likely for people that watch that movie than actually understand my science project. So this is why this exercise helps you to, like, you have this like world of information, and then when you try to put single words on them, then you can open other doors. Like if you look for the word wonder, then the moon, it might not be the only thing that comes to your mind. And there's something other about, like, for example, not only watching the moon gives you the chills, right? Because when you think about the word wonder and sensibility, then other things come to your mind too, probably just like, I don't know, just the chills.
Thanks. No, you totally hit it on the head. I love it. Sorry, there's a bunch of neighborhood kids that want to play with my. I'm gonna deal with them.
Don't worry, go. Okay, so after doing this exercise, I want you now to draw something under that word. Just something. I mean, doesn't have to be perfect, as we just saw. It doesn't even have to be a person. I mean, it just, you can use colors if you want, if it brings you any kind of extra information. Okay, I will start showing you my drawings so you know how basic they are. And for example, in sensibility, I put a hand, like a hand, just a hand. Because I think that for me, that's my representation of where I am most sensitive. I mean, and that's also the, well, the body part I use more for sensibility. That's just like the first thing that came to my mind. And then justice is like the very same hand, but like in a fist. And it's also a very known symbol. So it worked for me. And then so sorry for that. I was just telling my sister that I always mock my teachers when that happens to them, because it's like, dude, how can you not tell? Like, Sumi's actually telling you, like, you have a ticking clock right there. So yeah, I now understand why. So let's just wait for Pico and Flor. It might be still drawing and not knowing that it was over. Okay, so I put the justice like in a fist. And then on creating, I put fire. And the fire, I put fire just because I really think it's like this powerful element that can also be used for destroying things, but like using it in a wise way, it can really like shape things up beautifully. And then for girls, little persons with uterus, I put, and all of the girls that identify as girls, I put like little sparks, which is like something that might become fire later. And this is how, like, it's not like the best drawings ever, but it doesn't really matter. Like, the thing is that we're abstracting words into shapes now. Okay, so I see something going on the chat. Okay.
Yes, John should share his pictures.
I will
Show them.
Yes, I will show it. Okay. So cool. Can you talk a little
Yeah,
bit?
can you see that now? Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's part of the microplastic detection project that we've been doing on the science lecture. So the first thing is, what do I care about? It's about staying alive or life in general. And secondly,
Life works.
yeah.
Life works. Uh-huh.
And
Or
secondly, why? Because one, staying alive would affect the next fish, no, the next bigger fish, right? So staying alive is a chain. It's part of the food chain. So that's why. And how?
Okay.
Detecting, sensing. What I wanted to draw there was a monk, and those are like random religious symbols.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, who? So I care about fish. Yeah, and this perspective, it just came to me today after listening to you, and I just can't imagine that our presentation would have been a million times better if we made the fish a character and to tell the story. Yeah. So
Cool.
I'll start sharing right now, right? Yeah.
That's really cool. I mean, I think that analogy of the things, the little things that aren't important because they're not visible, are really that important. It's like an analogy to the problem. It's like the
Yeah.
problem is that small, like that it's not being evident to everyone. So at the very end, like on your project, the who is a fish, but in the whole problem of how invisible these problems are like humans, like actually surviving. And I think that's really cool.
Okay. Sorry, I'm like trying to multitask here, but so these are my drawings. Can
Okay.
you see?
Yes.
That's my wonder drawing. This is
Okay.
my, what do you call it? Equalization. That's the paper cutout people. And then this is, what are those things called? Atomic colliders, what have you know, like when you send a particle around and it smashes and then it creates all these other things out of it. So that's my, what is that? Catalyze. And then the
Okay.
last one is the forgotten little guy.
The other- The
The forgotten
preferred.
underdog.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. Okay, my feedback for that also, like as John, it's that both of them are actually directed to diffusion. I mean, it's like somebody who already knows the project can identify the drawings. I mean, and can identify the words and can relate to the, like, can actually put in their minds, they can actually relate the image to the word to the project and can make sense of the whole structure. But somebody who hasn't quite known or knows how a super collider looks like, for example, might not identify or have this sequence of thought. Like it cannot, it might not be that easy. So, for example, that there's this other exercise, which is your drawings, you have to redraw them, which is, okay, how can I re-express this drawing again? So as many times as you can do that, those are the strict order of words that we talked about at first. They all symbolize the same because you have the very same word. You have the very same why, you have the very same who, you have the very same, everything is the same. It's the same word, it's the same project. Nothing has changed. But the way that you are narrating it is different. So it will be a time that when you present those drawings to somebody else, they will totally understand the whole sequence. And I mean, it's really this is known as the 4 Ws method or something, but I find it really important, really practical to use when it comes to actually abstracting something like concepts, and that facilitates the communication a lot. So I will give you again some examples.
If I can ask, so you're basically saying that it's too coded. You mentioned, you gave an example earlier of you and your sister talking versus you and your dad talking, right? So right now it's a little bit too.
Yeah, we're talking about amongst friends.
Stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Exactly. For
okay.
example, for a presentation between the frugalists will work because we've heard you before and we know why it's important to you, and we know like we might know your whys, we might know your sensible why, for example. And the introductory part is the important part.
I'm listening to you. I'm just going to go around the table.
Don't worry, Rico, go ahead. And the like the part that, well, this exercise that I tried you to do with your projects is with information that you already have sorry, very present. I mean, that you've already know, that you already have, that you've been reading, etc. But it's more difficult with things that you haven't really thought about. I mean, is that a word? Mm-hmm. See, bingo. Part of yourself, like, why would I spend 3 hours of my time on this? Like, my precious time is that important that why would I spend 3 hours on this? Why would I spend like 100 hours on this? And because your time is really, really, really damn important. So think about that, and then do this process, but not with your project, but with like the pre-project, which is, why do I care? Not about the project, but why do I care about fishes at all? Right? Why do I care about the girls? Why do I care about creating? Why do I care about justice? Why do I care about sensibility? And then this exercise, I mean, creativity is a muscle, and you have to provide food, which is like movies and stuff, but you have to exercise it as well. And this is a very cool exercise. It's like, you have a word, try to draw it, and then what do you think this works this means? It's like, I don't know, and then you explain, oh, okay, that totally makes sense, those kind of things. And I will share this final part because illustration part, like you're not getting out of this workshop if you thought that you would go out of this workshop with this cool illustration. I totally fool you. But we can make a specific session for it. I mean, it's like, dude, I already have my story. I mean, I have it so freaking polished that, and I already have my cartoon board, and I already have my draft, and I already have those steps, and I want to illustrate it. Then we'll have that workshop, that specific, because this is what it implies. So if you think you can draw, don't panic. You can write, you can draw, okay? So amazingness arises in or I cannot pronounce it. I won't even make an effort. Yes, in everyday life things. So you have to make a commitment to your poorly drawn lines. They're only support material for your great story, okay? So for example, that regular show actually started as this. I mean, and this looks pretty nice. I mean, this is a very neat set of lines, but it's definitely not as good as drawn as it is now. It's not as polished as it is, but this is a very cool, this is like the very first pilot that they made for them to be like on air. It's like 10 minutes long. If you want to watch it, then go ahead. But then this is like one of my favorite cartoonists ever, and it's literally poorlydrawnlines.com. And it's like, it's not that very good drawn. I mean, it's like a very nice selection of colors. It's like everything is handmade, and it just works. Okay. And it's like the narrative here is like you're thinking of this lady as a very ordinary lady, and no, it's not. It's like a nice cup of tea, grapefruit, probiotic yogurt, amphetamines, snake blood, and Norwegian black metal. Okay, so it's not that regular as you thought, and that's the point. And it doesn't have to be really well drawn. And I put this other exercises, though these other examples, sorry, of artists that do not use like very high resolution methods or drawing to make their points. And this, I really encourage you to look at this. I mean, they're really, really, really good. This guy, for example, uses, have you seen these images on like these databases of images that have these lines crossed, and they have like these watermarks, so everybody knows that you're stealing somebody's, and you always get away from those images. It's like, no, I will not use them because everybody will know that I just, well, he uses those images all the time. And that's his narrative. He's committing to that concept, and it works. It totally works. And this is like your homework, like to check these videos out because they prove my point better than I do. And this is just like an encouragement in why you should start drawing, not because of getting better at drawing, but because you are obligated to watch better, to be more sensitive. Because, and this is very important, we are not designed as humans to draw. Our brains will totally tell us that it's a waste of time to draw shit. I mean, it's like, why would you want to do that? Your brain will fool you to really just represent the basics of everything, like this guy. It's like all you need to know to like to just know that this is like a grandma, is like to watch gray hair, some eyes, and the things that he's telling you about this. So he intentionally do not draw any wrinkle on this woman's face because he is writing it. But those decisions, this strict selection of words, this strict selection of lines, comes out of priorities that we already talked about. So this is like some references, and this is how you can start once you have your story to actually draw. So you can use existing material, and if you do, please just at the very end give credit. If you use like some images just as like those who have the watermark, then you don't have to do that, they already have it. So for example, this is an illustration I made. This is a picture of my friend Charlie, and I just take too long making landscapes, and I hate doing them. I mean, I don't like doing landscaping. So I just used a photo, and then I put my illustration on top of it, and that was it. So I just dedicated myself to make this illustration, and then I didn't have to do this because that's already a beautiful picture, and then I work with it. And you can actually do that. I mean, you can steal from others. That's actually art. Stealing from others and not letting people know you did that, but please give credit. And this is another one that I made. It's like I made this illustration and I just put it on a very cool picture. So I didn't have to do this. And you can also redraw existing material, as I did for the Frugal project. For example, I did not draw all of the things that I draw out of nothing. I mean, it would have taken me so long. So what I did, it was that I took some already existing photos and I just redraw on top of them. So that's easier. And what you saw, it was an effect of my hand reinterpreting another picture. It's not the picture that you liked, it was the structure of the images and the harmony between them. And well, actually, I cannot tell you what you did like or did not like, because who am I to say that? But that was my art, my intention as an illustrator. And the cons is that doing this actually takes a lot of time. But if you want to do specifically what I did for the Frugal project, let me know, and we will have a specific workshop to do that, like technically do that. And once you know what you want to do, like draw from zero, reuse existing material, or no, redraw existing material, recycle existing material, or draw from scratch, either way, you have to curate it again. So when you curate it again, this is when you make a whole sense of it. I mean, then you can say all of these ideas that came to my mind are part of the same thing. And that is that there are specific tools to do that. And it's, for example, and this is just like graphical line designer basic stuff, like commit to one dominant color, maybe 2 for accents, to one dominant font and maybe 2 for accents, and define how you use the lines. For example, here, if you see, there's no change in the lines. I mean, the line is the exact same line in drawing. Here as well, there are no out lines, and I actually make this bigger. Nope. Original. Let me see if I can. Here I decided to not put lines. It's actually a watercolor. So there are no exact lines. And my commitment was just to that. It's just like leaving the texture of the paper. And I don't care if you can see that this is a picture and this is paper. That's the intention of it. So as long as the picture feels that you are making that intentionally, it will work. Trust that. And just have fun with it. I mean, that's the whole process counts on that, because you will have to do it a lot of times and you better have fun with it, because you will need, well, we will fail a lot, and that's a win. It's tough, and that's how it gets easier. And well, it's just about enjoying the process. And well, that's about it. I'm not sure if you want to want me to go through something else, if you have any questions.
Like to ask how you made those composites.
How do I make?
Yeah, what tools in Sword do you use making those composites? They look beautiful. I usually use PowerPoint, so I just wanted to know if there's a great tool out.
Okay, cool. Yes. Well, my process, for example, to make this, I paint on. Let me go for one. For example, let's say I really like to work, first of all, in paper, like to really feel the materials. For example, I made this cat. So you can like feel the paper, and actually do this on paper first gives you like a texture, like specific texture that it's really difficult to recreate like digitally. So I like that, and I want to make that intentionally. And first I have this paper thing, like even if I make drawings, like poorly drawn lines, if you take a picture of it, even if it's like a really poor, lame drawing, the feeling of it being drawn in a actual paper adds like 100 points over any digital resource. So I make this, and then I take a picture, and then I currently now I'm using Photoshop because I happen to find out how to crack it. But when I was poor and poor in my hacker knowledge as well, I actually used PowerPoint as well on the crop part, but it's not that sensible enough. So there's some like to take the edges out of a drawing. So there are some tips to do that, even with PowerPoint, because that's the only resource that I had at that point. And for example, let me give you some, what I do, like a tip, is that I started to make the lines, the outlines really, really, really strong. So it's easier for PowerPoint to crop that. I mean, the thicker the line, the easier will be for you to manipulate those editors. Canva, or like it's improving the sensibility of editor. So if you put the option of cut the backgrounds of any drawing, it will be better. So for example, on tiny drawings that I make, which are these ones, I try to really put the line really, really thick, like in comparison, because it's easier to take the line out later than to incorporate a line with a mouse. I mean, that's really hard. So if you put a line on the, this is if you don't have Photoshop. If you have Photoshop, then it gets really, really easy. But for example, this one, like really adding the lines. That's for the practical part.
Can I share something? So,
Yes.
sorry,
Like,
this is small. Because I've done collages like this in the past also quite some time with free tools, and so I used GIMP and Inkscape mostly. And like with GIMP, you don't have the vector stuff that Photoshop has in there as well, right? That's why I always use Inkscape for everything vector based. But with GIMP, you have an option that is called, I think, color to alpha, and I use that a lot. So I make the image really, I enhance the contrast so that the background is really white, and then you can just translate everything that's white, or like also the gradients, to alpha, and then you can easily stack them like next to each other, and that works really. Like I also do that super dirty. I don't like do
that is
quick things there, right? Just like ideas putting together, and that works super well.
that actually, like, I had no idea, because I did not study arts. I mean, everything I know of arts and computers and stuff, it's practically self-taught, and I've been learning just like as I have no idea. But the like intuition actually helped me a lot. And for example, in vectors, I have no idea how to use vectors. I mean, I cannot do a single illustration in vectors. I have no intentions on learning how to do that ever again. That's a really cute dog, Rico. And well, that's just like stick to the tools. Like that's like my tip, that stick to the narrative first, to the process of telling the story, and then you will be better at picking the tools that will work for you. I mean, it's easier to sharpen those tools than actually building the creativity muscle. And it takes a lot more time to watch all the movies that you need to watch to actually reinforce all your creativity drawer than learning drawing skills. I mean, that's the tip that I can give you, because you never know when an illustrator can join your team. And when an illustrator joins your team, that person will be more grateful to know the story of it, so they can illustrate it, than actually looking at some other drawings that they might redraw. So that's my tip. But if you already have the narrative and you want to like actually illustrate it, and you want tips for it, like specific on color, on contrast, and all of that, we can have that specific session as well. And that will be it. And we have 5 more minutes. Anything else you want to say or ask?
I have another question about the story, actually. But first, thank you so much for the session. Like, it was super cool and I learned so much. But I'm still, so I'm often lacking the part that, so these 4 steps are already super helpful, I think, thinking about them and like putting them down to something small and abstract that one can illustrate, right? But I feel like there's something more, right, going from this to a story. So how would you basically go over these words again and again, and you try to find narrative images, right?
Yes.
That how do you like, how do you put
what
it
are the steps, the strict order of the steps? Well, I
mean, there is no, right? I guess.
yes,
Yeah.
well, it's how do I do it is that I have this bunch of ideas on my head, and for trying to narrow them down, I start with this why, how, and then I get a lot of images, and then I have a lot of versions of what I mean, of what I want to say, and that kind of builds a story. I mean, if you saw the pictures that I selected, it was like a hand here and then a hand here and then fire and then sparks, and that kind of gives me this kind of line of thought. And that's when I'm talking to a friend and I tell them that story or one of the stories that I already abstracted. And it's like, well, I have this version in my head, like the first version of Rico, for example, and then the second version of Rico, and then the third version of Rico. And I start telling that to someone I know, and then I try to tell that same story to someone I don't know. And then I again try to take more words or different words to try to express the same thing, and then different images. And then it's easier to make a comic because you already have a lot of images that resemble a specific word. And then you have a lot of material to make this analogies. And then you have more material to start building like kind of sections, because a project it's actually a very long story. So I mean, you can do a why, how, what, and who for the problem, and then a what, why, how, and who for your peers. And then I don't know, it's just this exercise. There is no, again, correct way of doing it, but at least this process really helps me on first having some structure, like some steps that I like to follow. And this structure also provides me lots of ideas that are already like interpreted in a specific way. And I have the registers, which is really important. You have to draw to have the registers on how did you abstracted that idea. And you have it, you have your drawing. So
It
I'm
makes
not
lots of sense. Thank you.
yes, we have a minute. Anybody else?
No, totally awesome session. I think there was a lot to process. I think I do need to watch it again just to think through everything you said, because there was a lot of stuff here, and it was all good stuff to chew on. If I would request a second session, it would be just to sort of practice. Once we internalize all of the concepts, then maybe just practice. But I can't thank you enough. This is really cool. Sorry, I was like in and out. I was
Don't
listening.
worry, dude. It was my pleasure, and I will give you, I have a minute. I really hope it doesn't happen to me as well as my teachers, but I will give you the task of watching the videos of that it's on the Notion page, and then I will think another mini workshop, just like practice, and I will post this video on the Teach Me Anything, or I will give it to Tyler just so he knows what to do with it, because he's Tyler and he always knows how to do with things. And that will be it. Thank you so much for your time, your patience, your kindness, and your love. And I will see you real soon. Please take care.